Hi there, good morning. Coming up shortly, right here on 107.1 FM, press conference by uh, attorney at law Nigel Hughes. That will be any moment now.
Good morning to you, members of the media. Thanks ever so much for attending our press conference this morning. So we started the conversation at 11 a.m. I'm attorney at law Daniels. I'm present with me. Hughes and Berger, attorney at law, and Mr. Colin Healy. So in terms of structure as to how this press conference will unfold, I will read the chronology of events in the press conference, and Mr. D will engage you briefly in his experiences in incarcerated, and his funding for it will document for you the procedure which is undertaken at the Director of Public Prosecution's Office, and then he will review our recommendations, after which we will field questions from you and the meeting. So, Mr. B was charged on the 24th of February 2016 for the August 31, 2013 murder of his common law wife, Miss Ceremony Ramirez. Mr. B was taken through criminal proceedings, and he was commuted on the 22nd of November 2016 to San trial in the High Court. And Mr. B is being incarcerated from 2016, from February the 2nd of February the 4th, sorry, of 2016, up until the 13th of October of this year. Mr. B has always protested his innocence since he was charged for the murder of his common law wife. Mr. B shared a common law relationship with Ms. Ramirez, I think, for an excess of 21 years. And at the time of our demise, they were still in the common law union. We have represented Mr. B for several years now, leading up to his being free of the charge of murder. Now, on the 13th of February, when Mr. B was basically free of Justice Department made inquiries of the prosecutor as to whether there was any evidence against Mr. B at the time he was first arrested and charged. The prosecutor responded in the negative. There was no evidence against Mr. B at the time that he was arrested and charged. Justice Barlow inquired of the prosecutor Justice Barlow made certain observations which we have made available in the public space. And among the observations that Justice Barlow made was that the prosecutorial arm of the state has failed Mr. B, who has spent nearly 6 years in the custody of the state under conditions that he would narrate for you, because the prosecutorial arm of the state did not discharge with the type of law, the type of diligence and grievances that the responsibility should be discharged. And Justice Barlow did make the observation that Ms. Bailey's experience is not a unique experience. And she pointed out at least in one account, in instances in which other persons would be incarcerated for protracted periods when there was admitted no evidence against them. Just as Mark was indicated, that is a call that we certainly would join in making. The prosecutor wants to discharge his responsibility, which we have elaborated, or our recommendations, what is it that we are calling for as a result of the experience that this meeting has gone through. Those experiences not being unique in this meeting. And of course, we would make recommendations as to what we perceive the way forward should be. So I'm not calling this meeting to give an account of the time we spent incarcerated and what I experienced as you like living.
Good morning. It's part of the second and my results. I was a minute from time for my others. It's a long period, for more than scheduled than most. They will be down to the end of where it is we break up concentrate my also number was for 2 days. My second stream of you on with started the initiative 1992. We started to move from different places on time. And all the places that we were and Park Street, Walnut Street, Bar Street, and vice versa. That was the rest of it. None of my more or less more studies. Nothing changed. I did not straightforward. Speak to the presidential get there. On that day, I followed to the normal way to see as the dedication. And some years before, I saw the honor that something happened before. With my wife and saying, the government, I thought I would have been informed. The second time, they gave me informed that the dead would speak to that day. This is not the functional police is gone. We reached my duty and essentially assisted in an investigation by giving information about technical transform destinies. And I later speak to government administration where companies the government, I continue working on self-activity. There was a safety charge for driving work. That's it. I was told by
Hi, sorry about that. Morning. Here's what we're trying to do. I just sent them a message there. The connection, sorry about that. The connection is very, very bad. So let us just bear with me for about a minute or so because we want to get back to this press conference. Do forgive those guys there. It's nothing at my end.
always not settled. Okay, we can go out, not go out here. For meditation, on sport, carrier water. I'm sure you will want to. The next day, you're time. This is my was conversation the morning without category. And he told me there he was asking for
Hello. Uh-huh. All right. Yeah, can I call you back? Actually, give me about 10 minutes. Thank you. Yep.
Access no short time, 17 items, on the side.
Hi, sorry about that. Let's see if this is going to be any better. Technology and basically internet connectivity is somewhat a bit bad, but all right, you guys bear with us for a quick minute. We'll be right. Yep, sorry about that. We are trying to connect. We do see them there, but unfortunately, we are not getting a proper signal. Hey guys, sorry about that. I don't want it to appear a little bit unprofessional. We'll take a quick break, at least at our end, and we'll be right back.
She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold lamp on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cockacrow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cockacrow, dagabag, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Cockacrow, dagabag, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. Inaga, jackass yard for fetchy load. Cockle Cheyenne, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. Sun a go down, but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokonani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Banga Mary. Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend come. Out in the yard, them all gather round. Some a play catcher, some making house from straw. Two who come later, a grandma or grandpa. All a sit down just a wait. Moonlight so bright, it's just the right time to listen story or to say a little nursery rhyme. Grandpa voice a echo in the night as he tell the tale. Some picnic a there with fright. Oh, Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma, Burra, Nancy, even Watamuma. Oh, Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma, Burra, Nancy, even Watamuma. Yeah, man, that's the true story that tell the people about life in the country, life in the country.
This might be still finished reading that you have to read just like that. These are some of the experiences there that people cannot understand what one go through while in prison. I think the thing clearly only because of the you go there because you just did do something as a result of this. But it's a whole different thing. It's how you think about the person being there. You have to experience it. So it was really bad day for me because it's strange. Things to see, things to do, you have to dock yourself to eating, sleeping, getting, talking to people. So you can very well speak to a person now when you respond to you, and then you see morning thing, the very next morning you're in for a slap or a cough or a cuss out. So it's a whole new experience there. Then you have to contend now with the prison officers. And I had experiences there. You talk to a prison officer concerning some very simple things, and they just don't respond to you. So you have to find some other way in how you get that done. I want to tell you a next story, a whole story about that. So I spent a line there at it was now almost 3.5 days until the fire, and I was moved to Timeri. At Timeri, there's no set of prison officers there, and a different attitude. Attitude that is more oppressive than any other thing I could think of. You can't get them to understand what you want, what you like to have. The food is atrocious. The same level of toilet facilities, social distance is not happening there at all. And other people, inmates could have what they want, but you can't get. That's the kind of impartial thing they go on with the prison. You find there's times when they have searches, and this is one that is very, very much embarrassing. You have to actually walk in a line among females, big women, retirees who are back there not working, and they will stand there looking at you naked, dropping your pants, and you have to drop the word is drop skin and spin. And you have to go through that. And all of them standing there looking. But those very people who are doing that, when they enter into the building where you are living, and you don't have a short, you have to ensure you have a short on before when they come in there. Other than that's the problem. We're not finishing just saying these things here. But my life was totally devastated.
I think the general takeaway from this press conference, the general takeaway that we would like to leave from this meeting is simply saying that we are calling into question the position of any judicial officer, any police officer, any person that is discharging functions on behalf of the state to say, proffer the charge and let the court decide. Let the magistrate decide, let the judge decide. And that is the position we are challenging. And I would like to go back to the words of Justice Barlow. These are not our words. This is the sentiment of the court, and the court seemed at pains to communicate that the court is not attacking the particular judicial officer that was standing in front of the court. The court was attacking or calling into question the apparent issue that seemed to be at the feet of the constitutional office that is discharging this function. And the court said there is something fundamentally wrong with the justice system when a citizen can be charged, convicted, and indicted when there is no evidence connecting the citizen with the commission of the offense. And Mr. Bailey is correct to say that justice is not done if the wrong person is incarcerated. And how will we know if it's the right or the wrong person? Because I see these arguments on social media daily. The issue is there evidence? That is the legal system that we are confirming to. And if there is no evidence, then in the sentiments of the court, then there is no charge. And I would always tell my officers previously, if it's not what we know, it's what we can prove. And if we can't prove it, and if we don't have the evidence, then it is only fit and proper. It is right to wait, to continue to investigate that matter, and then to proffer the charge. Because you give false hope to the members of the public. So you proffer a charge, the media follows that person, the person is remanded, the person is placed on bail, and you track the matter. 3 years later, 2 years later, that matter falls through. And then allegations are proffered at the hands of the magistrate took $1, or the prosecutor took $1. That is unnecessary. So it makes no sense having 10,000 matters in the judicial system, and you know that there is no admissible evidence in that matter to substantiate the charge. It would make better sense economically and socially for you to proffer charges where you have evidence. So if you have 10,000 matters and you perform your duties, you read that file and you weed out the matters where there is no evidence, then I am of the view that the public and the judicial system will be better served. And this is not a light matter. The court also lamented that in 4 months, this is the 4th defendant being told, I'm sorry, there is no evidence against you. So what does that mean? That means, and I'm using the words of the court again, this is a case where the constitutional body tasked with performing lawful indictments has failed Mr. Bailey. This is a case where a citizen of this country has been put in this position because the body tasked with ensuring that the person is only before it if there is evidence linking him to the commission of the offense, did not thoroughly peruse the material. Was there evidence for a charge? Just for a charge? When someone is charged for murder, there is no bail. The practical result is there is no bail. So that person will then go through what is called a preliminary inquiry, committal proceedings in the magistrate's court, which can last from 6 months to 2 years, 3 years. Thereafter, they have to wait for that bundle to be prepared and then sent to make a list of prisoners that will face an assize trial. Now you have a list right now, just in the Demerara Assad, 2 judges with 170 names per list, and only 4 months to do 170 matters. When are these matters going to come up? So if you are going to add to that list matters that you concede had no evidence in the first place, then it means that possibly you're making a decision to charge a man to punish him with the remand, and then the court will decide. So we will see, and I anticipate we will continue to see no case submissions being upheld because there is no admissible evidence. I was not there. You, members of the public, you were not there. How do we know that this person is guilty or not? The litmus test is our judicial system and the processes in our judicial system. So what do we have in that judicial system? That file is prepared by the police investigator, CID on the ground. So a murder just happened, someone just died, you don't know what happened, they investigate. You have eyewitness testimony, circumstantial evidence, bits and pieces of evidence they will gather that what we would normally say that fit together like a jigsaw puzzle to solve a story. So that evidence is then put in a police file, and that file is sent to the police chambers for advice. No police officer proffers a murder charge without first getting legal advice. So they can proffer simpler matters, simpler charges, but not a murder charge. There will always be advice from the DPP before murder charge is proffered. And usually it's within that 72 hours or more if the person is not available, or like in this matter, where that investigation supposedly went on for a 3-year, 2-year period. So then DPP staff, the attorneys at DPP chambers, will then read through that file. When they read through that file, they will make certain recommendations. And further investigations. Please clear this up, clear that up. Make sure you get this into the evidence. Do this. And the reason for doing it is not to say charge the man that the police are suggesting to be charged, is to see whether or not you have everything. And possibly whether the police miss loopholes. So you go back to further investigations or whatever. And then possibly that charge can be made. The DPP's representative will advise that the person be charged or not be charged. If the person is advised that the suspect be charged for murder, that person is then placed before the magistracy. It's an automatic remand. And then you begin to set dates for the preliminary inquiry to proceed. So when this preliminary inquiry is going on, you do appreciate that this person will now line up with other matters that will garner the court's attention. So preliminary inquiry can drag out for 2 years normally. 2, 3, 4 years. It's not unheard of. Because when you look at the list, when you look at the list of matters, when you look at the date of charge to the date of committal, oftentimes it's 2 or more years. So from the first date you're charged to when the police put together serve the statements and all of that, the magistrate then comes to a decision if either reading through the statements or going back over the evidence that was presented in the magistrate's court at the committal stage. Magistrate will then say, I'm of the view that there is sufficient evidence to commit this person. And the magistrate will commit or discharge the person if the magistrate is of the view there is no evidence. And the DPP has the power under 187 of the Constitution to revisit that ruling of the magistrate. But we're not going at that stage. Let's say the magistrate does commit. The file further gets reviewed. The file, the evidence, the deposition is then bundled, and that takes some time because the court staff have to type that information up and send it forward. When it comes now to the DPP's chambers, again, the deposition. So not just the evidence in the police file. So the state will now have what the witness said in their police statement and the actual testimony, if it's a preliminary inquiry that went through. So you have the actual testimony of the person, the persons who testified in the matter. And at that stage, especially if there was cross-examination by defense counsel and that kind of thing, you will see the defense coming through the cross-examination. And the DPP again has a second opportunity, second or third or fourth, because while the matter is at the preliminary inquiry stage, you do appreciate that the police have the direct access to continually go to the chambers for advice. So then you have the depositions at DPP. If they are of the view that there is sufficient evidence, they will indict, right? How is it that we can concede on the 13th of October? How can we stand and concede there was no evidence to charge, there was no evidence to commit, and there was no evidence to indict, and he sat there in prison for almost 6 years? However you feel personally about this individual that you don't know, did the system work for him? And why are we here today? Are we beating up on the prosecutorial arm? Or are we simply saying, this needs to be checked out, right? And if not us, then who? I don't know, right? Can you imagine your son or your daughter caught in this way? And who would you go to for assistance? And when you do come to counsel, whoever is your counsel, and they say, well, I will keep checking, I will send a letter, I will file a motion, and we go back into the same system. Is that sufficient to your relatives, the funerals, the weddings in them, and to our identity should not be charged. Still have time to check. justice to do right thing, say, we are going to withdraw this indictment. And that did not happen. That indictment went through, the witnesses went into the box. There was almost no cross-examination of any. One witness was cross-examined. And then let the court decide. How are we conforming to the position of let the court decide? Just charge a man, give me a charge, I can feel good. Let the court decide. So we are throwing the blame on the court, or every arm of the state will work judiciously to make sure that we get the right people. Because then we will build public confidence in this judicial system. If every day someone opens a newspaper or now they go on social media and they continue to see acquittals with a reason, their impression and their view of the judicial officer, and it will be at an all-time low. So what are we doing today? We are basically asking, we're echoing the sentiments of the judge. Otherwise, it would be said that we are trying to start. I don't want us to just treat with Colin Bay as yesterday's news. We have seen these instances occurred in the United States, especially when we were at home throughout 2020 in the COVID period. And we felt the way, and we stood up. Black Lives Matter, and we shared sentiments on our social media platforms, and it is happening home now, and we turn the page. That's not acceptable. And the court said, the court's plea to the prosecutorial arm, not our plea, but we're joining the court in this plea of the state is to examine the material. So we're telling the state how to do their job. Examine the material. If you have anything to do with if the person had anything to do with the initial charge, no charge should be instituted where there is no evidence. Examine the committal record. That's your second shot. Examine the committal record. Examine all other relevant material carefully and fulfill the constitutional mandate that dictates that no one should be before the court unless there is some lawful reason for that person to be here. This is not too much to ask. Every civilized society, I hope that Guyana is in fact one, must have a system to ensures for its citizens that measure of security, that measure that says you will not be before the court if there is no evidence. Are you telling me that I am going to walk around Guyana on coals with a fear that when I leave this press conference today, I can possibly be charged where there is no evidence against me? So law is reason, free from passion and emotions. So if people are boiling up and they're putting pressure on you, come on. We have gone through the legal training to decipher what is admissible, what is not admissible, and I think we are echoing the court's sentiment that a second look should be had at what is happening at the prosecutorial arm. If there is no evidence, why is there a charge? So that is our plea today, and we have recommendations. We didn't just come to complain, and my colleague Ronald Daniels will outline some of those recommendations.
Thank you ever so much, Ms. Sandifer. You've heard from Mr. Bailey, and Mr. Bailey has articulated in a rather concise way some of the grave experiences that he suffered while he was incarcerated, and not just incarcerated as a man who is presumed innocent until proven guilty, and a man who is incarcerated when there was admittedly no evidence against him warranting his incarceration. And as Ms. Sandifer said, the plight Mr. Bailey faced was that he was charged with a capital offense. And once charged with a capital offense, you either have to without the process to go to trial. If you do not prevail at the close of the preliminary inquiry or the committal proceedings, you just have to wait it out. What Mr. Bailey did not say to you was that he suffered a minor heart attack while incarcerated, and he also contracted COVID-19 while incarcerated. In terms of what is it we're calling for, as Ms. Sandiford has indicated, this is not a personal attack against the prosecutorial arm of the state. The prosecutorial arm of the state represents the Chief Minister of Justice. And as the Chief Minister of Justice, that arm has a constitutional responsibility to ensure that prosecutions are conducted dispassionately, that there is no personal investment in prosecution, and once prosecutions are conducted passionately and without any personal investment, it means that that filtering process should be a comprehensive process, should be a rather meticulous process, because we're dealing with depriving persons of their liberty, depriving persons of everything that comes with the deprivation of their liberty, the loss of their family, the loss of their social standing, economic means, etc., etc. So what we're calling for, joining the call of the court, is for a commission of inquiry into the operations of the prosecutorial arm of the state with respect to the incarceration, detention, and the prosecution of persons, especially in instances when there is no evidence against those persons. So we're basically calling for an inquiry into how the prosecutorial arm of the state operates, what filtering process that arm of the state goes through when it deliberates or prosecuting, when it deliberates laying charges, when it deliberates at committal proceedings, and when it deliberates in the presentation of indictments. And we're calling also for an inquiry into how many other persons, past and present, may have suffered a similar fate that Mr. Bailey has suffered. And at this juncture, we entertain whatever questions you may have. The other person, good morning, question is, Mr. Bailey. Mr. Bailey, will you instruct or Mr. Hughes, the Jamaican who will sue the state for 17 having been released, but was here detained, and she won that case against the state of Wales for in respect of that. Your case, similar information in the sense that the state will not provide any evidence to people, even if they incarcerated, and the fact that we were not past the place of the alleged murder, the instructing the parties to pursue similar action in terms of the laws.
Yeah, absolutely. I've already instructed 922.
So I'm not on the right here. And so that happens that my kids want to category of recommended disability charge could you say on what basis our recommendation and finding is given based on the review of the file, it was sufficient since there was no evidence based on the police report. we're not in a position to say on what basis that recommendation was made. What we can say conclusively, and what the court has reiterated, was that that recommendation was made on the basis of no evidence, no extant evidence against Mr. Bailey. So there was absolutely no basis for that recommendation. There was no admissible evidence left before the court against Mr. Bailey. Absolutely none.
Sorry, Adam Harris, can I be heard?
Yes, Mr. Harris, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I have a question based on the commission or committal of Mr. Bailey. Now, there is supposed to be a preliminary inquiry at which evidence would be disclosed and the magistrate would decide whether there is case for committal or not. Was there such a process at Mr. Bailey's preliminary inquiry, if there was one? If not, how could that have escaped the prosecutorial arm of the system?
And that is precisely where the system broke down. Because when we represented Mr. Bailey at the committal proceedings, we did make submissions that there was no basis for the charge against Mr. Bailey. Mr. Bailey was committed nevertheless. As the Honorable Judge has indicated, even after that person passes the committal proceedings, the prosecutorial arm still has the responsibility to review that file before the indictment. So at that stage, having passed the stage of Mr. Bailey was charged, having passed the committal stage, there was still the opportunity, as Mr. Sandiford has, so the Burris said there was still the opportunity for the file to be reviewed and for there to be the null pros, for the charge to be withdrawn without having been presented before the High Court.
The government is working on these 40 liquor laws system correctly. Do you believe that that program can help remedy such cases here, as well as address the recommendations that you have offered?
And in fact, Mr. Sandiford to respond.
The program that the government is rolling out, I don't have, I've not been privy to their objectives. And this, I guess, would have already itemized what they want to teach, what they want to share, what issues they want to address. That is why we're here today, because we don't know if this is what is going to be addressed in that program. And so possibly through your members, we can keep harping and suggesting that there is a problem, because this is not just an isolated case. The very court said that this is the fourth case in 4 months, if that doesn't suggest a trend. And this is a case, if this is the fourth case in 4 months, and a paper committal or a preliminary inquiry takes about 2 to 6 years before the matter is then presented, then this is an old issue, and it means that this is possibly, this is a virus, this is something currently eating in the system. So who will check it to say, well, is there an issue? It's like when people say there is no racism, who is going to first check to see if there is an issue? And then after you check to see if there is an issue, how bad is it? So whoever is responsible for the program that you have just highlighted, I don't know if these are their talking points or their objectives, but we are respectfully suggesting that if it isn't, this is an issue that is ongoing, and we will possibly see this repeat itself for the rest of this year and into next year.
You understand that Mr. Blanchkapa has a question?
Yes, thank you, attorneys, for that.
This is quite reminiscent. I've listened to Attorney Sandiford mention the question as to how long this has been going on for. Before I get to my question, this, as you guys know, this is something that is personal to me. And it is ironic that Justice Barlow, who acted once as a deputy director of public prosecution, she has sat there, she knew about these sort of matters, a lack of evidence. Personally, from my case, treason case, there was absolutely no evidence. So to say this, I agree with Ms. Saniford that quite possibly this has been going on for too long. It has got to stop. Whereas the state has spent billions upon billions of dollars trying to correct a system that they seem obviously not able to correct at all. Meanwhile, people continue to suffer in prison. My question is to Mr. Bailey. How do you feel about the system wronging you over 5 years, being in some horrible conditions at the both Lusignan and Timeri prisons?
Honestly, I believe that the system has failed immensely. And this is not only happening now. I gather you suffer the same thing. With me, for just a continuation of what the system is doing. That is why I was so devastated at one stage, because I'm looking at, is this the state with all its legal mind there, looking at the file that I could see there's no evidence, and I'm there suffering in prison. I was surprised to not, and I remember one very learned individual told me that in the judicial system, sometimes they summarize the rest. And I like, this is what's happening. So this needs to be corrected because it's going to continue. And I think it needs to be corrected. I must say this to you, Mr. Dental, that I was surprised when you came out that you did not follow up, I know, in this aspect of what was occurred to you. I remember trying to make contact with you during that time. But here I am, I'm doing it.
Can you relate to us during your incarceration? Give us some average number of prisoners or persons who are incarcerated that you would have spoken to that are receiving that as you are. And secondly, do you think that or was the fraud charge against you run against you before or after you were charged with it?
Part of the second question, before
the fraud charge, you said there's a fraud charge against you. Because
no, we have a hearing.
Was that before you were charged or after?
It was before the mortgage charge. It was before the, I think that's where they started the whole thing of concocting something from that. Yeah, there is. I'm almost certain there is an indicator. In the lives of the multi-person, presently, I will not be able to know, all of it, right or wrong, but those that I have come into contact with, I average about 10% that I personally ask. I don't want to hear from you that you have some way of legal technicality to get off the matter. I want to hear from you if indeed you did not do it. And this is what I believe, what they said, and they're convinced. They convinced me that yes, they did do it. I have about 10% that
can you say that the whole person that said to you that you were beaten or assaulted, the whole justice or something?
plenty, a number. There are plenty.
Well, we take a question from, sorry? No, Ms. Marshall, the average, the same question that he does that. Could you attach an average here?
I want to say this. If most of the inmates would rather say they were beaten, but I'm talking about those that I asked, and I keep saying this to them. I want to know the truth, and yeah, I have this. Those that I came in contact with, they most of the time. Yeah.
Ms. Marshall?
Yes. Could you say something like informally director of public prosecution or the Attorney General to put forward your recommendations to ensure that what you've spoken to your university it is registered with the system or the state or the status to inform the issue of that. And how confident are you that those recommendations would be seriously considered by the state? If not more concerned, if the more severe would and very deliberation.
I'm concerned to observe that what the court has said is no secret. Mr. Bailey's story is no secret. Mr. Bailey's story has been in the public space since the 30th. And we personally have engaged the Bar Association relative to Mr. Bailey's story. We've not gotten a response from the Bar Association yet. We're optimistic that we will get a response from the Bar Association. We've seen no commentaries from the Attorney General's office relative to Mr. Bailey's story, and we've seen no comments emanating from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Of course, we would write formally making our recommendations, and we can only remain optimistic that given the magnitude of this issue, that it will be treated with the type of seriousness that is warranted. Mark Benshaw, we have a follow-up from you?
Yes, there is a follow-up. In fact, Ms. Marshall's from Village Voice preempted my question about the Bar Association. However, since Mr. Bailey asked a question as to what happened when I came out from prison about that wrongful incarceration, let me just say to Mr. Bailey and all that's listening that my attorney then, the late Mr. Llewellyn John, filed a civil action lawsuit against the state that was shot down by the then sitting acting Chief Justice, the late Eon Chang, who said that there was no basis for that and shoot it down almost instantaneously. So there were efforts to tackle the state on that wrongful incarceration, but apparently the judicial system had something to hide and to cover up. So I just thought I'd make that clear. Good to hear your story. Good to see you all, Mr. Bailey.
Yes, we have a question from Chronicle, and then we wrap up.
Hello, good afternoon. Am I being heard? Actually, I think it's Tablet News. I just raised my hand. This is Penny.
You are being heard, Penny.
Yes, good afternoon, Congress. Mr. Benchmark, just a little very interesting observation as to whether or not sometimes the judiciary has something to cover up, if I got his comment correctly. I am wondering also, and I don't know if anyone can answer this question, but from my understanding, at the conclusion of the preliminary inquiry, it's usually, well, where the magistrate would say, I believe that there is sufficient evidence, and so a prima facie case has been made out, and that person is then committed. So even when you strip the police and their efforts to get advice from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, I'm wondering how could such a matter have been committed in the first place by an attorney, because the magistrate is an attorney? You know, I am wondering, I don't know if it was answered before, but what comments will counsel have for the magistracy? I am divorcing the magistracy from the prosecutorial arm of the state, and I'm sure I'm rightly doing that. But how do you feel to know that a magistrate would have said, well, there is sufficient evidence, and then when you go to the High Court, you hear something totally different? Why did that not even get committed at the magistrate's court level?
Ms. Sandiford?
I would say, Claire, on criticizing the magistrate. We can't go into the mind of the magistrate. The magistrate is, in fact, an attorney, and we can get things wrong. And that is why we're saying that they are right now there is a system. The system is police investigates, DPP advises on the charge, there is a paper committal or preliminary inquiry, then it goes back again to the DPP to check all of that. So you have several, the wheel has several cogs in it, several checkpoints in it, that at some stage in this system, it should have caught the wind of the relevant judicial officer to say, let's stop this matter here. So I don't think it is proper for us to sit and criticize the magistrate. What I can tell you is inside of the bundle of the deposition was a particular case that seemed to suggest that the magistrate can. So I don't know if the magistrate tried to stand on that case, but clearly that was discounted totally by the time we got to the High Court. I am of the view that if it is properly examined at the DPP's level, this may not happen again, or it may, but at least our thing here is maybe not so much the blame game, as you heard Mr. Daly have advised his attorneys to sue the state. But suing the state will give him monetary damages, monetary award for a wrong that cannot be undone. So this man has suffered medical ailments, has suffered emotional trauma, has suffered all of these things. And that is why I told my officers when I was with the state, it's not what we know, it's what we can prove. And there's a consequence for us being emotional on the job. I'm hearing the media stirring me up. You started for charging today, you started for you carrying the man tomorrow, you're taking him, when you carry him. Hold on, guys, hold on, let's do this thing properly. Because if we don't hold on, the state, when I say we, I believe we're ministers of justice one way or the other, right? The state might possibly lose that matter when they could have, with some more patience, gathered more evidence, and then again, justice is not done. So we will not sit here and criticize the magistrate. What we are saying is that currently there are many checkpoints and they still did not work. Therefore, if you have all of these checkpoints and it didn't work, what will we do about it? Will we turn the page and say this is yesterday's news, or will we, in our justice improvement project, however we title it, add this as a critical consideration? Let's examine what happened here. Don't let's call names. Let's examine what happened here. And that's what we're asking for. We're hoping that that's the tone that this press conference gives, rather than a finger-pointing sort of tone. I'm hoping that something more materialistic, something with more depth can come out of this. It's not what we know, it's what we can prove, and it's not an emotional exercise. Because people will get hurt one way or the other. The only people that win in this whole thing are the attorneys. The attorneys will win or lose, the attorneys will win. But what happened to civil society, right? The relatives of the deceased will feel this pain because they have to sit and look at this press conference and ask questions. Can they now go back to the investigators and say, well, in this matter, the Colin Grant pleaded guilty, and there are facts in relation to what he pleaded guilty to. So to me, they have some level of, I don't know, something to rest on, that their matter is partially solved, right? But what happens in other cases like these, where the man is eventually acquitted, and then so you have the man acquitted, the killer possibly still out there, and so the relatives of the deceased still get no closure. So, yeah.
So we take two more questions, and then we'll close.
We take the report in the room here, and then we take the service, and then we close.
Yeah. You mentioned that I guess it was pretty much actually figure to what you were asking for in the last. What do you think will compensate for what you did to the trauma, the emotional?
We're still advising Mr. Bailey on that one. Mr. Harris?
Yes, sir. Either you or Mr. Andrew the DPP office says that they don't have to offer any explanation to the media. Have you or can you approach by writing or somehow the office of the DPP explaining this crack that Ms. Sandiford spoke about that allowed Mr. Bailey to sacrifice 5 years or 6 years of his life? Can you write to the DPP to get an answer that you could share with us? Because the DPP says, I ain't gonna tell you nothing.
Well, we will not impose any obligation on DPP's office to respond to us or personally explaining where the system broke down. We would convey our recommendations to the relevant stakeholders and remain optimistic that those recommendations will be treated seriously. So we'll now close. I think what is really instructive here is to draw the distinction between Mr. Benchcop's situation and Mr. Bailey's situation. In Mr. Bailey's situation, you have the prosecutorial arm admitting that there was no evidence against Mr. Bailey at any stage of the process, from his initial charge all the way up to the presentation of the indictment against him. What is really crucial here is that Mr. Bailey was represented from the outset. And from the outset, we kept impressing upon the prosecutorial arm that there was absolutely no evidence against Mr. Bailey. And we've done this over the course of the 5+ years. We've done this orally, we've done this in written correspondence. As a matter of fact, we've even written to the state, inviting the state to bring up Mr. Bailey's matter for trial. Mr. Bailey went to, or was being shuffled between 2 judges for perhaps 2 or more years. 2 judges who said explicitly that they're conflicted relative to his matter and could not have heard his matter. 2 judges who have made orders that Mr. Bailey's matter should be presented before another judge and should be presented expeditiously. All of those calls and orders fell on deaf ears. We've even gone the route of filing a constitutional motion so that the state can appreciate the serious violation of Mr. Bailey's constitutional rights. And it's until after that constitutional motion is filed, that is when we got a hearing from Mr. Bailey, and through the determined efforts of Ms. Sandiford and our other team members. And we just want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to spend the past hour plus with us. Thank you ever so much.
Recording stopped.
All right, you've heard it there, live press conference there from Nigel Hughes' office, 2 brilliant attorneys at law, brilliant, and I do know them both even before they were attorneys. Sandiford performed excellently at the TPP chambers. She's now up in private practice, working, I believe, out of Hughes Fields and Stobie, Nigel Hughes' law firm. I'm trying to to see if I can get a quick few minutes with Mr. Bailey, and not to take away anything from the press conference, because those lawyers have said it all, and I don't want to add anything legally, but I was attempting to get a few minutes with Mr. Bailey to talk about the prison conditions and so forth, and his 5+ years in prison, knowing that quite possibly, that there was no evidence, absolutely no evidence. The state had no evidence, but yet he had to undergo those sort of conditions in the prisons. And as you know, from personal experience, it is not a bed of rose. albeit for the 5+ years that I have been in there, it was in solitary, or what is called solitary confinement. But I'm awaiting word back from his attorneys to see if I can get that few minutes with Mr. Bailey. Just a few minutes with Mr. Bailey. Somebody's telling me that my volume is low. I don't know. This is the first time, absolutely, the first time in my life that I'm being told that my volume is low. Um, um, the first time that I'm being told that my volume is low. Let me see if there are others. Okay, some GT Root Girl, GT Root Girl is saying that it's at her end, because I thought that that was a bit of a surprise that my volume was very low. All right, we were hoping to join with the guys in London, but I'm not seeing them as yet. I know it's after 5 p.m. in London, so I'm not sure what is going on there. Before I get off this live, let me see if permission is granted for a brief interview with Mr. Bailey, just about the conditions there. I know he touched on it very briefly, but I'm interested in that because I want you guys to hear what really happens in there. Those of you who have never gone there, and those of us who were there, you're not going to be hearing it from me because you guys have heard it too many times from me. It is fresh out of Mr. Bailey's mouth. He did say, and again, let me make this clear that I don't want to piggyback on the press conference. The press conference is done with. And instead of starting a new live, I just decided to see whether it was possible to have a quick interview with Mr. Bailey. I'm still awaiting word from his lawyers. As you know, the press conference just concluded, so I've got to wait. I've just got to wait for that. It's a matter that, from a legal standpoint, they are still trying to work out their options as to how they are going to approach the court in terms of suing the criminal justice system, suing possibly the DPP chambers, suing the judiciary. Well, of course, they can't sue the judiciary directly, so they have to sue the state. I noticed that somebody asked Mr. Bailey, one of the media persons, asked Mr. Bailey what figures he's looking at in terms of his lawsuit. I am sure that his 5 years of imprisonment, the lawsuit should be nothing less than $50 million, nothing less than that. Mr. Bailey made a good observation. In fact, he said that he thought that maybe after my release that such a civil matter should have been brought against the state. That matter was brought against the state by the late Llewellyn John. Mr. Llewellyn John brought the matter before the court, and it was called in front of then acting Chief Justice, Mr. Eon Chang, who has since passed away. Mr. Eon Chang immediately shut that down and said that I was entitled to nothing, absolutely nothing, and just shut the door on that. And I looked at my lawyer, Mr. Llewellyn John, and I basically smiled, because what I suspected and what I knew, and along with Mr. Llewellyn John, attorney at law, is that the state had something to hide, and we all know that the state had something to hide. Carl Miller, I'm not going to get into a figure as to how much, but I'm saying, sir, that it should not be anything less than $5 million. I'll take a quick break and I'll be right back, guys. Don't go anywhere.
feeling rude, I'm feeling hot, I want to run. The feeling exciting.
Hi, sorry about that, guys. Our operator knows that I like that song, but I don't think it's the time. It's not the time for that song, man. But we will be joined in just maybe about a minute or so with Mr. Bailey. I have some questions to him concerning his 5+ years of incarceration. I'm looking forward to asking him a couple of questions. So thank you so much. Thank you, guys, for sharing the link. Thank you for your patience. I know in the beginning of the press conference, there was a little bit of hiccup with regards to the audio. So please bear with us. Marl Joseph, you guys are already calling figures for the guy. 5 million is not fair. 50 million, nothing less than 50 million. Come on, 5+ years and $5 million. I see you guys. Linda Campbell is saying $500 million, $500 million. You know, when these things are taken to the court, one has to be very reasonable. And why I say that is to take a matter and say $500 million, that is a little bit unreasonable from a court standpoint in a civil matter. And you know, you have to stick to figures that are reasonable. I was just about to say we lawyers, but I realized that I'm not a lawyer. You know, so I'm not a lawyer. So I'm saying from a layman standpoint that nothing less than 50 million, to say maybe 100 million, 150 million, and then they come to a settlement. And when they reach to a settlement, it could very well be between 75 to $50 million. It could be less, but it depends on the settlement. It depends on the lawyer, and in this case, the lawyers representing him, to come to some sort of expeditious agreement. And I say expeditious because we don't want this to be dragged out for years upon years. So usually attorneys sue, they call a certain figure, $200 million, and then they start the negotiation in terms of breaking it down and how much the state is going to settle. In this situation, the evidence is way too much. It is right there. It's a clear case of victory for Mr. Bailey. It now depends on the amount. Why do I say it's a clear case? You have the state admitting that there was no evidence, absolutely none, no evidence against, sorry about that, looking like Jack Dave doing this, but it's just the etch, right? It's not my nose or my wiping my mouth. So the evidence, they don't have to, the state, the judicial system, the arm of the state, has already admitted that there is no evidence in the beginning, none whatsoever, no evidence against Mr. Bailey, no evidence at all, none whatsoever. And they knew this. They have already admitted guilt. They put their hands up, they surrendered, because that is why Mr. Bailey was released. He was released because of no evidence against him, none whatsoever. And so I've noticed our operator, Lemon, is indicating to me that Mr. Bailey is about to get into the studio so that I can have a couple minutes with him. No evidence that they have admitted. So this to me is, if the case is filed this week, by next week, there should be a settlement in favor of Mr. Bailey. I've noticed some of you saying $500 million and all these sort of things. I don't know. It's up to the lawyers. I wish I was a lawyer in this case. Trust me, I wish I was the lawyer in this case, but maybe I should just get to law school and done, man. Maybe I should just get to law school and done and finish this with. But we're waiting for Mr. Bailey. And thank you guys so much. You guys have been very patient. And let me salute those two young lawyers, Mr. Mr. Daniels and Miss Sandyford. Let me see if Mr. Bailey here is. Mr. Bailey. Mr. Bailey, good morning to you, or good afternoon. Mr. Bailey, good afternoon. All right, we're still awaiting. Okay, I'm told that just to hold on a minute, but we will get back to Mr. Bailey. Do share the link. We appreciate that. We are seeing some of you guys. We're seeing some of your comments. And, you know, I don't want to take the time to acknowledge two of you, and the rest of you going to get just all jealous, as oftentimes is the case. Brenda Braithwaite, how are you? Brenda is asking a question here, and let me just say this with my few years of law. I'll say this, Mark, can your case be reopened? I don't think there's a chance of that happening. Why? Because there's what is called statute of limitation for civil matters. And the statute of limitation has long run out. So there's no turning back there for me at all. But if you guys want to ensure that I'm properly compensated, then maybe you guys should start a GoFundMe so that you can raise that amount of money that I would have sued the state for, which is $100+ million. You guys, since Miss Brenda Braithwaite and everyone so concerned. So I'm being a bit facetious there, but in answering your question, that there's no reopening of that civil case at all. But thank you for your concern. Thank you so much. We're still awaiting Mr. Bailey to be on with us. Just bear with us. Chesney Henry, thank you. Time has passed. It's called statute of limitation. You have within a certain period of time to bring a lawsuit or to bring a suit against the state. And once that is passed, then that's it. The statute of limitation has ran out. There's no statute of limitation, though, I believe, for murder. So if someone commits a murder and they run from the jurisdiction and they're hiding, then there's no statute of limitation for that. Let's get over to Guyana. We are joined by Mr. Bailey, former prisoner, one former prisoner to another former prisoner. Good morning, Mr. Bailey.
Good morning.
I'm trying to hear you. You're a little bit far back. So can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, we can hear you. I can hear you, but you're speaking through a mic and the audio, your audio is very low. We'd like your technical person to correct it for us, please. Let's go at it again. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yep, it's still a bit distant. If we can get that fixed a little bit. Let's hear you now, sir. Mr. Bailey?
Yeah. Good morning, sir.
Yeah. Still a bit low. I'm looking at some of the comments here from folks. Your guy can correct that. But go ahead. Good morning again. Let's test the volume.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, perfect. Whoever did that is a clever technical guy. Can you guys hear Mr. Bailey? Good morning again, Mr. Bailey.
Yeah, good morning to you, sir.
Perfect. I understand how you're feeling, because like I have said before this introduction, from one former prisoner to another former prisoner. Let's first begin by saying good to see you. Let us say that good to see you in good health. We have heard that you suffered a minor heart attack whilst you were in there. You have recovered from COVID-19 and all of these things. How are you feeling right now being a free man?
Well, I am much better than when I was there, uh, trying to get myself back together. I think personally I need some counseling, you know, because of the mental stress there. So, other than that, I'm doing pretty okay so far, by
You know,
God's grace.
Mr. Bailey, some people might ask this question, whether your treatment as a former police officer was any different than the regular prison population.
No, there was no different. How I was treated and what I experienced with other inmates is the same thing. The very thing that happened to me, it's happened to other inmates.
How would you, and I just asked that question because there might be the perception by some folks that maybe because of you being a former police officer, that maybe your treatment was somewhat different. And I agree with you that in most cases, the treatment is no different than the regular prison population. Can you describe from the first day you went in there, what was the prison environment like, and how were you able to endure it for 5+ years?
The prison environment is really need to be look into. It's not where you go in there and feel that you're comfortable and feel that, well, when you get out from there that you'll be any better, because there is nothing there in prison that has been done for prisoners that could make them better. Absolutely nothing. Every single thing there is a struggle. You have to actually force people, the officers, to get things done. There are some very silly things that happen there that, well, when you look at it, it's like what could be done very easily. They make it look as though it's such a hard task. I could give you instance. For instance, you might want to have fruits. In a pandemic like what's happening, it's talking about fruits. Have a lot of fruits, vitamin C and stuff like that. Do you believe that they don't see apple and grapes and so as fruits? That's not permitted. That's for Christmas. In this age, the whole system is still in a penal kind of thing, oppressive kind of system. So there's nothing that will you in prison. You have to. It's a struggle. Every single thing is a struggle. And you talk about it, then look forward that, well, you are one who's against the system. So
Yeah.
it's difficult. In my time there, being a military post for such a long period, I went into a state of adapting to what's going on, not in the sense of doing anything against the rules, but being me. I intended not to change and go to doing what other people were doing, other inmates, you know, to get the attention. I just being me and let them know that this is my rights and it have to be done. But if you go too hard on them, then you have further problems there in prison. It's the prison is atrocious, not the prison itself. We're talking about the authorities there. And you see they go about talking, and I want to say this: you see they go about saying that how there's change and we are moving. If the state or prison authority really want to move from a penal to correctional position at this moment, there are a lot of people there, prison officers, who the force have to start dealing with. They have to change their mindset. They have to get them to understand what they intend to do. Other than that, the prison and the inmates will remain the same thing, struggling all the time.
Interesting that you have said that. Seem to be a pattern that has been happening for years now, and people have been talking about the same thing. You are correct about the apple and the grape situation, that those things are prohibited from the prison system. When I was there and I asked about why apples and grapes are not allowed, they said that it may cause a fight. within the prison population, because there are some poor prisoners, their words that is, there are some poor prisoners whose family can't afford grapes and apple. And if they see other prisoners getting grapes and apple, it may cause a problem. Did they explain that to you, Mr. Bailey?
That's been the explanation, and it's so absurd. But that's been the explanation all the time. They find excuses that doesn't make sense. Simple doesn't make any sense. Look, we have situation, and this is of recent, where sanitizers should be allowed. Now you have inmates who will do other things that's not right. Like some inmates drink the sanitizer. All right. So one or two person drink the sanitizer, the entire population cannot get sanitizers. No, you have to put system in place to deal with those people who are drinking the sanitizer.
Wait, 1 second, Mr. Bailey. 1 second. You mean I'm looking for it here. You mean the hand sanitizer? Sorry about that. I was looking for mine. The hand sanitizer
Yes, Mr. Benko.
that prisoners are drinking it? Go on, continue, sir.
It's alcohol. I mean, if you check the percentage, it's alcohol. So you just add a little water and they're having alcohol. But you don't have that plenty into the prison, in the sense that what happened, when this thing started, the pandemic, they put it at a strategic point. So you could wash your hand, they will steal it. Some of them will steal it, but it's not like the entire population or a whole set of people, a few, one or two, which you could control. And I'm going to be that clear with you. And if I could mention this, it's not the local here, is the foreigners using it.
Wow. You know, the other thing that you mentioned that is quite demeaning, disrespectful, especially when you're returning from court or wherever, mostly court, that when you're in the receptionist area, amongst female prison officers, that prisoners are forced to strip naked and squat right there in front of the female prison officers. You mentioned that, and of course you're offended, and rightly so. Talk a little bit about that, please.
There are periods where they normally search the prison, and I'm talking about more recently, other than Camp Street and the other places. Let me just say about Timeri, just before I was released, the place that I stayed for a year. They search the prison on occasions. So every dorm have to exit in a line. This is an open area. It's not in any enclosed area. This is an open area where all the dorms could be looking out and seeing, and every single office in that compound could be seeing you. It's an open compound. And you have to be stripped there, female officer, and they just stand there and look, and everybody's being stripped. To be honest, I had decided one day to go outside naked than wait until you reach to the post resort, just walk out naked. And I told a few other inmates, we decided to do that, because it doesn't make a difference when you reach there and they're standing there, and they're older people than some of the inmates, older. So you're going there as a young man trying to, listen, how could a young man, seeing a lady who could have been his mother, stripping in front of us, standing there looking, and then expect that young man, an inmate, going to have respect for her? Could she correct him? I doubt whether it don't happen, because there's no respect there. You of your own self, some of your dignity, the dignity that's left in you, your liberty is taken away, your dignity is left in you. Up to that, they tend to take away from you sometimes.
You have said it. They want to strip you of your dignity and your humanity. Based on my experience, I never squat for them, because I told them that I'm not going to do that. And especially in front of female officers, it's just not going to happen. Something that I refuse to do. But it is degrading, very degrading. If you were to highlight two main things as it pertains to prison system and prison, the behavior of prison officers that need to be changed, what would be those two things on top of your list?
One, the prison officers, those prison officers have to need a lot of training. They have no tolerance, patience. And I think that's a very important thing that they need in the prison, because there are people of all nature, all manner, illiterate, might not have been brought up among with a family. So it's difficult, fair enough. But if prison officers don't have patience and tolerance, the way to talk to inmates is going to always have a problem. No matter what change you intend to make there, you're going to have problem. You cannot call inmates by false name, cuss them out because they cuss you, and expect that you will change that said individual who you responding to like that. It can't happen. I think that's one of the change. One of the next change is that they need to have people who are working there who are not retired. You have some people who have retired, returned to the service, and in position that is senior to other officers who are there, who could function like them and even far better than them, but they are in authority over them. And you know what? The most bad part about it is that they have this long penal kind of system mentality in them. It's still there. So I think those two things need to be changed. Some of the staff that is working there now that is brought back into the system who just not fit to be there.
You know, Mr. Bill. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, sir. Go ahead.
And if you really get an opportunity to really talk to some prison officers, you will find that how they are operating in the manner they are operating because they are really more or less frustrated by themselves too with some of the seniors who are working there.
Frustrated indeed.
Yes, they are.
You know, one of.
If I should say this to you, Mark.
Go ahead. Mhm.
Have you ever looked or noticed at any time in the prison system where you see in the news that the prisoners did anything good? If it is, you will see very few, not much of it. You won't see they get in the press and say that the prisoners did something that is good there or so. You'll never find that. But you know what? Their own stupidity, you know what they do? Every time they search a prison, every time they search a prison, you see in the news, they find lighter, joker, and a host of things. They're simply highlighting their own incompetence in the system.
Their incompetence in the system, Mr. Bailey. I know you've had a busy morning. I know you want to spend time with family members, loved ones, friends, and everyone. And I don't want to take up much more of your time, but I still have a couple more questions. And this is pertaining to visits, family visits, and phone calls. I remember back in days, my time there, family visit was every 3 months. You get a chance to see family members. In my case, every 3 months or 3.5 months, I got to see my son, Ryan, who was very little then. And then the phone calls, you were entitled to one phone call, 2 minutes phone call, maybe per week, and one overseas phone call per month. I don't know if that has since changed, but go ahead and explain, sir.
Well, it has changed a little because of the pandemic. You find that you're entitled to two phone calls. You have a Zoom and one Zoom. You could talk to the person by Zoom, your family by Zoom, and you're entitled to a phone call. Now, I would like to explain something about that phone call. You want to make a call when you ask that you're supposed to get that call. You know, it's difficult for you to, and this is one of the problems with prisoners also, they're having issue. You make a call, you get a chance to make a call. It's done within a period of time. And that time is when your family will be at work. After 4, you can't get a call. So most of the time, you go there trying to make a call to somebody that will is not at home. It's not possible. How are you able to get that? But it remains now two phone calls for remanded prisoner and the same one for convicted prisoner at the particular time with a Zoom call. Recently, they started back the visit, which there are certain things there too. You have to ensure that you are vaccinated. And there's an extra there. If you are not vaccinated, the prisoner is not vaccinated, you can't see your relative. You can't have the visit. But the relative have to be vaccinated. That's the only time. If you and the relative is vaccinated, then you could be able to see. Other than that, you can have no visit. That's how it is. Other than that, the visiting is not allowed anymore.
Wow, interesting. What about visits? Because according to the the prison laws, is that human rights groups or the visiting committee, sorry, um, should be visiting quite often to find out, away from the ears of prison officers, to find out the treatment and conditions of prisoners. How often do members of the visiting committee visit the prison system while you were there?
Within a year, the one visit I recall, with the understanding that they will be coming back on the within a month. When I left, I haven't seen them. I don't know if they're still around. Um, with the visit, with the visiting committee, is the next issue there. If you're going to have the visiting committee come in there to relate issues that is bothering prisoners, knowing of the oppressed kind of thing that the officers there are doing, would you want to have a prison officer among and most senior officer there with the visiting committee? You won't get anything from the prisoners. You won't know anything from the prisoners. And this is what they keep doing. So that is a waste of time. Total waste of time.
You know, that was the case because the law says that the visiting committee should not visit prisoners and hear about complaints in the presence of prison officers. But
Well, I don't believe they're aware of that law because the prison officers keep doing that. They're always present.
yeah, indeed. Before we go though, COVID is rampant all around. I'm glad that you have recovered, sir. And we continue
Thank
to
you.
wish you a speedy recovery and good health. Now, what is the COVID like in the prison population, and how is it being treated? Those who are infected and those who are not infected. Let us hear, please.
Uh, there is no social distancing, and according to the guidelines that is applicable there in prison, because you have in the dorm, you have with 43, 49 persons, and everybody use the same washroom. Everybody's there, not no distance. We eat well, we walk among each other. God dwell among us, as I normally say, because if COVID, at one time there was a situation where the entire dorm where I was in, an adjoining dorm, which is close, that would be about 60 something person within that two dorms. They were suffering from this coughing and sneezing and so. And we indicated to the medical officer that we are of the opinion that people are having COVID. Our information and what he said to us then is that it's a flu and it's mimicking the COVID. You know what caused the doctor and the medical team to reach there? It had to have create a big noise, banging and hitting and making and shouting out for a good hour, and then the attention was drawn. When the medical officer came, 33 personnel, that's only who went to get tested. 33 person was tested positive, including myself. Now, what they did, we were tested, we were put back in the same dorm. Who weren't tested were in the same dorm. So, and that's why I'm saying God really is with prisoners, because in that dorm, when those set of men went in there, and this was their explanation. that they have found out that based on their experience, all we need is proper eating, get your vitamins, and everything is going to be all right. That's their position. So we were put back in there, everybody was put back in the dorm, and we were given vitamin tablets, vitamin C tablets, after then for a couple of things until they felt that it was over and they stopped. Fruits were coming plenty during that period. After then, that's over. So it's they are more these the prison system is more or less a reactive kind of thing. It's not proactive. It's not trying to prevent things. It's just when it happens, then they deal with it. And most of the time, they try to deal with it in such a way that, well, if you don't try helping yourself, surely it doesn't make sense because the food is not as good as people might think. It's not that good. The fruits you get sometime, you got to just tell yourself, look, we are hustling with this. You got to try to keep let this go down because it's not the best. Anyway,
You
and
know,
still,
yeah.
and
I know
still,
you're.
and
Go
still
ahead,
at
Mr.
that
Gale.
stage,
Mhm.
and still at that point, you're having issues in getting your fruits. You have to bring certain amount of it. And Mr. Benchcott, could I say this? In something I learned in prison, when situations like that occur, prisoners really come together. So you share whatever you have, because that's the only way that we could help each other at that point in time when things like that occur.
Exactly. Before we go, because we don't want to hold you up too uh, long a period of time here on 107.1 FM. But again, just to reiterate that we're glad that you are out. I know during my time there, the food condition was horrible. There were porridge that was supposed to be given with milk, but people drank black porridge. There was the pan top where they just sup the food on top of it. What's the food condition like there in the prison?
It's not much improvement at all. Not much. That is always an issue in the prison. It's an issue because it's of the opinion of the prisoners, which is being seen, that the prison officers take the food out, the stuff for the prisoners out more often than what the prison is supposed to get. They take it out, and if you remember the talk, they razzle it more than any other thing, and it
I
remains the same.
recall I recall that perception very well because the not all of them. There are still some good prison officers, but there were some
Yeah,
of
they
them
are.
who were taking out the food with black plastic bag and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
There was one particular prison officer who kept stealing the prisoners' food, our food, mind you. And when I confronted her about it, she made a big complaint, and I recall that I was taken out of solitary confinement into another solitary confinement, stripped with handcuffs on, naked
Yeah.
with handcuffs on, and shackles on for 5 days. All because I confronted her about stealing the prison ration. So, hey, it wasn't easy there at all. I understand what you have endured, Mr. Bailey. Before we go, though, describe what's the condition like. You have spent some time at the Lusignan prison. We call it the Lusignan pasture. What is it like there at Lusignan prison, sir?
Oh, I was never in the Holland Bay area. I was never in the Holland Bay, other than I could say what people say about it, but I was never in the Holland Bay area. But uh, generally, I don't believe it's some place that human beings should be kept. In where I was, the building was very old. That's the one that's burned down. The building was very old. We were housed really congested there, in a very small area, and there wasn't it wasn't good at condition. It wasn't a good condition. Wasn't good at all.
And there's still a lot of prisoners who are languishing in there, awaiting trial. How do
Of
they
course,
feel? You left them there.
of
How are
course,
they feeling?
of course. As I'm saying, Mr. Benchcock, if the state or the judicial system really want to reduce the prison population. There's so many things they could do. And one of the things is that simple looking at people who are in prison that is there wrongfully. They're not supposed to be in there. It's no big a task to go through the file with all those people working in the DP chambers and see that, well, listen, this is what needs to be done and ease the burden at the prison. Many people plead guilty to manslaughter. You know why? To just escape prison, haven't committed the act, but just because they get the opportunity and say, well, listen, I'm going to give you a thing, I'm going to manslaughter and plead guilty, you get a time serve or something, they do that, but haven't committed the act. They might have been involved with previous criminal activities, but in a particular case, they did not, but they choose to go and plead guilty because of the length of time they've been there. They just plead guilty to manslaughter and they went away. I was
Is
all
there,
for that.
yeah,
I was all for that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's called throw in the towel because oftentimes there's discussion before they go to court. They say, man, look, they're tired of this prison system. They're just going to go and throw in the towel and plead to a lesser, which is manslaughter. So right
Right.
about that. And a lot of people have this feeling, some of them might be listening to us, that everyone who is in prison is guilty of a crime. You
No,
know, in Chetty Jagan's book, The Western Trial, he said he spent a couple of weeks in prison. He said that he has come to the realization that not everyone in prison is guilty of a crime. And there are more guilty ones outside than they are inside. Go ahead, Mr. Yeah.
I personally felt when while a police officer, um, I used to believe, never used to go through the file or go through file to thing, but I used to always believe that someone who is charged perhaps had some knowledge. That's how I used to feel. I mean, I never really like being, very wrong to prisoners or so, or arrest or choose to go to the court and lie on somebody and so on. No, and I also believe that not until I was I placed my foot was placed in the same shoe. Then I realized that the kind of people that's there, um, is not nice, not nice.
It's not nice at all, Mr. Bailey, and I'm glad that you've admitted that as a former police officer, that's how you felt, even though you never lied on anybody or whatever. I hope you're not one of the officers who put handcuffs on me before too.
No, not at all. I think you remember me, Mark, if from East of Penitence. I was a certifying officer there.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I got you now. Quickly before we go, Mr. Bailey, before we go, when you stood there in the court and you heard the DPP chamber saying that from the beginning they knew that there was no evidence against you, how did you feel, sir, hearing that?
I just, I knew from the inception that I was not involved. Firstly, I was not involved. So hearing that, I always believed that the truth would remain the truth, even if you're a minority. So I just think that they're exposing themselves here after reaching to a point that they can't go any further. All they had to do, they were forced actually by their own self to accept that, well, this is no case. So I just felt that, the truth have revealed itself. And I was thankful for that it came out. Whereas it's not a case where the judge had to tell me that, there was no sufficient evidence. But she said clearly that there was no evidence, that I should have never been charged from the inception. That was so important for me to hear, and I felt good about it. To know that, well, the state, those people who are the DBP chambers, I wonder, that question I would have liked to hear them answer. When they self had to say that there's no evidence against me.
Yep, we may be having, well, not maybe some technical problems, but we will go. We heard you loud and clear, Mr. Bailey. You're a brave man. You're out. We're glad that you're out. We're glad that you are going to be taking
I would like if I could say this.
your lawyer. Wish you all. Sure,
Uh,
sure,
in
Mr. Bailey.
prison,
Go ahead, sir.
yeah,
It's your
yeah,
day.
in
Go
prison, I
ahead.
would like to say this that I've learned in prison, among from other inmates there. That's a bigger part of my family now. Those that I left in there, because I've created that. I myself and one Orange Sandy and some other inmates have formed a group which we call Prisoners of Hope, Change to Positive Thinking and Action. And we have formed a group where we're trying to, like push inmates to understand and have some difference in their lives while they're in incarceration, so they could do something better when they get out there. Because the prison itself doesn't do anything good for them. And other than that, I want to say this: most of the time, because of the system, persons who are incarcerated and they leave prison, they're not going out there better, but going out there bitter because of the injustice that is done to them. And other than the injustice, is that the struggle and the kind of oppressed state that the prisons officials, some, not all, some of them, is being imposed on inmates at the prison.
You know, that is so true. I agree with you 100%. And whatever it is that I can continue to support the prison system, as we have done over the years through the Venture Foundation, we will do that. I'd love to be part of that organization that you guys started, Mr. Bailey. Anything like I said to assist. I know that there are thousands of people in Guyana who have read about your story. Thousands of them are listening to you right now in Guyana and around the world. Here is your opportunity to thank them all before you go. Your closing remarks, sir.
Okay, I just want to say the day before the day when I was leaving, I remember when the judge has actually discharged that matter. I recall that I asked permission to speak to the entire dorm, and I expressed honestly the way I felt, and I told them how I became emotional. I told them that I would miss them, be it good, bad, or whatever it is. We had our, ups and downs in there, but we were family, and we were united when things come happen. I want to say that I am not, glorifying criminals. I am not saying that justice should not be served to people who have committed crimes. But then those persons are human, and they are not placed there for them to be punished, but they should for the crime they committed. As a result, they should be treated properly and go through the process of what incarceration calls for. I believe that there are many people, many inmates that is behind and there. If by chance the system, the authorities choose to go to correctional kind of system, then they ought to go quickly into it and start working on it. Because at the end of it all, if they don't, people who are incarcerated wrongfully, people who are there suffering because of the kind of oppressive kind of behavior of some of the officers, they're going to come out there and be bitter. And when they come out there being bitter, they're going to continue. And this is what people need to know. The change should happen in prison so that when they get out there, they are something better that is coming out and not someone who's bitter. So I think that, Mr. Benchclub, these are things that I intend to push for. I want to tell my former inmates that I still have their back as much as I could do. For those who need my help while I'm out here, I'm willing because I'm connected to you despite I'm out here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you've answered a question. And I wanted to ask you whether you feel bitter about this whole 5 years went down the drain, wasted from your family members, your friends, your loved ones, and everyone? Are you feeling any sort of bitterness towards the system?
Of course, of course. But you know what? If I stay in that, if I only stay in that, I will still be imprisoning myself. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to leave that behind, but I'm going to try to ensure that other people don't suffer the same fate that I suffered.
Well said. Well said indeed. You said that you need counseling. We wish you all the best. We hope you get some good counseling, my friend, because those of us who would have endured that, knowing that we were wrongfully incarcerated, it does take a toll at times. And I'm glad that you will be getting some counseling. All the best, sir. We wish you all the very best. Good, best of luck for your civil case as well, your health, and to start life all over again from the outside this time. Thank you so much, Mr. Bailey. Our prayers are with
Thank you
you.
very much. Thank you very much for having me, Ms. Benchko.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Mr. Bailey there. I think also the lawyer in the press conference earlier did speak of, the lawyer did speak of, sorry about that, a little bit of distraction. The lawyer did speak of, yeah, sorry, a little bit of distraction. The lawyer did speak on a particular matter that I just lost my thought on. But this is not to paint the entire prison population, the prison officers, with a bad light. I know I have said that there were officers who were stealing prisoners' food or food that is supposed to be there for prisoners. That's not all of the officers are doing that. I thought those days were over, but Mr. Bailey confirmed that they're still stealing the prisoners' food. Maybe the time has come for prison officers to be, have an increase in their salaries, because sometimes if you listen to the salary alone, it's an embarrassment. Prison officers should get proper training. What we know, billions of dollars being pumped into the system, and you have consultants who don't know anything about the prison system, who are making $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month, claiming that they know about prison reform and to change the system. And that's money coming from the IDB, taxpayers' monies and so forth, and it's just not happening at all. But I'm glad that Mr. Bailey was able to tell his story, and I'm glad that his lawyers, Nigel Hughes, Mr. Daniels, Miss Sandiford, and others are on this case. They're competent lawyers. Thank you all for tuning in. God bless you. And until this evening on Straight Up, I'll see you guys then. Justice. And never judge a book by its cover. Not all of those folks who are in prison are guilty of a crime. Never judge a book by its cover. Because I know a lot of people who condemn the prison system until they get in there and they see for themselves what is happening and the prison population, what it's like. It's horrible in Guyana. Horrible. God bless you all.
She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cock-a-crow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cock-a-crow, dagabag, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack, cock a crow. Dog a bark, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day I back down, me now I come home.